Hi, Melissa. Can you hear me?
I can. Hello, Amanda. How are you?
Good. Can you not see me though? I need to press this maybe. Hold on. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good
Nice.
after good afternoon. Lovely to see you, Amanda.
Hi, nice to be here.
My name is just to do a bit of an intro. My name is Melissa Bauer, and I am the Sustainability Member Services Manager at the Pet Sustainability Coalition. And I am joined by the wonderful Amanda Goodwin, who is the lead storyteller and stewardship at Life is Good Foundation. Did I get that? The head of
Head of
storytelling
storytelling and
and
stewardship.
stewardship. There we go. At the Life is Good Foundation. At the Pet Sustainability Coalition, I have, like I said, I serve as the Sustainability Member Services Manager, but also have the pleasure of serving as host for our monthly webinar series. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is our second in our philanthropy series. And I'm so excited to see and hear all of the amazing things that Amanda is going to be sharing with us today. So while we give it just a few more minutes for people to join, let me give you a little background on our webinar series. So we do these once a month. Normally, we'll be taking off the month of April. The month of March, excuse me, for the Global Pet Expo, but we'll be coming back in April for some very exciting news to launch our Green Paw 2.0 program and all of the exciting features that that's going to include. We'll be launching that officially at Global Pet Expo, but we'll be doing a webinar to announce those details in April. We do these webinars, like I said, about once a month. Most of the topics are suggested by members as subjects that they are interested in. And we really hope that they serve as a resource for a broad range of sustainability topics, but also as a starting point for conversations between members of the pet industry. So when we start, and we'll just give it another minute or two to launch into the content, Amanda is going to be presenting some great materials, but I'll also be keeping an eye on that chat box if anybody has any questions or kind of wants to add anything. Can everybody just kind of that's here give me a shout out of where you're calling in from? Where do we got people from today? I'm here in Denver. Amanda's in
Amanda's in
very
Boston.
snowy. Yeah, Amanda's in very snowy Boston. Um,
Very sunny
can,
Boston today. I will take.
can everybody hear me okay? Let's see if we've got anybody. Send a chat out to let me know that you guys can hear me all right. I see we've got people kind of calling in from all over, which is awesome. We'll get a start in just one more minute after we do a good sound check to make sure everybody can hear us.
Melissa, will you switch over when I can share my screen, or am I doing that?
Yeah, let me get that to you. All right. Well, we've got people calling all over. We got somebody from St. Louis. We got Sandy from Chicago, Julia from Polka Dot. Thanks for calling in, and we will get started. Once again, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate. I'll be keeping an eye, but Amanda, take it away.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Again, my name is Amanda Goodwin. I am the head of storytelling and stewardship at the Life is Good Kids Foundation. What that means is that I get to share the stories of our life-changing social work and say thank you to the 52,000 individuals, supporters, organizations, businesses, and other funders that come in and make that life-saving social work possible. I'm going to go in and tell you a little bit about the history of what we do, why we do it, and then kind of give some insights and tips for you on how you can kind of go through and figure out who might be your best philanthropy and nonprofit partners in your area. So let's see how great I'm going to be here. I'm going to turn my webcam off. And hopefully you can now share my screen. You can now see my screen. Let's just see. Yes. So Melissa, could you let me know, is my screen being shared now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll just start off with. I'll just start off with a little bit of my personal story of why the Life is Good Kids Foundation and why life is good.
I realize I have a lot to be grateful for. My son Briggs came into the world 2 months too soon and only weighed 2 pounds. We spent the first 61 days of his life in the newborn intensive care unit, and then we spent the next 14 months working with physical therapists, social workers. In this traumatic as it was, what I always came back to was how grateful I was that I got the opportunity to be this little boy's mom. I had been looking for a way to give back to the community that had done so much for my family. And I wasn't even aware that Life is Good had a nonprofit that worked with kids, but they were looking for someone to kind of head their messaging and fundraising. I knew I had to get involved.
Help us build a strong, lasting foundation. Thank you so much for being here.
There really is kind of a wrap your arms around everyone kind of approach here. And that energy was instant when I walked in. And I knew that this was a place I definitely wanted to be. I really think of Life is Good as this grateful machine fueling good work. Whether you're designing a logo, packing a shirt, answering a call in customer service, or working with the schools and hospitals, everyone here contributes to putting more great, thankful energy out into this world. I can't think of a more optimistic approach to work and life. It's pretty awesome.
So, everyone can still hear me, yes?
Yes, ma'am. I love that video, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So to get really clear, Life is Good is an integrated model. What that means is that we have both a for-profit and a nonprofit that lives under the same roof. The for-profit, you may have heard of Life is Good before. They're basically an apparel and lifestyle brand. They create optimistic clothing, optimistic stuff for your pets, optimistic stuff for your home. And 10% of their net profits every year benefits the Life is Good Kids Foundation, which is a frontline nonprofit service agency. And what we do is provide transformative trainings, workshops, and ongoing coaching to more than 12,000 professionals working in schools, hospitals, social service agencies, and enrichment programs. Those are things like after-school camps and summer camps, to help those that are working directly with children that have suffered trauma create optimal places for those kids to heal and really put trauma-informed and compassion-informed care into their practices so that they can establish lasting relationships, which we know when treating early childhood trauma, the most essential ingredient is responsive relationships with adult caregivers. So the Life is Good Kids Foundation recognizes that our teachers, our nurses, our social workers are uniquely positioned to help kids heal. And we do that, again, through our Playmakers program, which offers transformative trainings, workshops, retreats all throughout the US and Haiti. Our work ends up partnering with over 12,000 child care professionals and impacting the care of 1 million kids. So how do we kind of start all of this? Well, as you'll see here, in love, we trust. Our founders on the Life is Good side, Bert and John Jacobs, those are those two handsome dudes in the top left-hand corner. Bert is in the Stay True, and John Jacobs is in the Spread Good Vibes. They're two brothers who started this company 25 years ago. And if you ask them, they would tell you that the only thing they've ever really been good at is making friends. Now, turning their last $78 into a $100 million lifestyle brand, you might assume that they're better than just a little bit more than making friends. But actually, the art of making friends is probably the most essential, not only business component, but lifelong optimistic health and happiness component as well. The very brief story of the creation of the brand, Bert and John have, after growing up in a household that had very little except for a mom who at the end of every day would have her 6 kids around the dinner table, sometimes with not enough food to go around. And she would admit that the day probably brought some bad stuff, but just for 20 minutes, could everyone go around and just tell me something good? That idea of telling something good, of finding the opportunity in obstacles and reflecting on what went right instead of what went wrong, really resonated with Bert and John. And after they graduated from college, they decided that they wanted to put their career in a force of good and really in homage to their mom, Joan, who had given them that essential piece of advice of tell me something good, despite, not because you're ignoring what's wrong, but because you're going to focus on what's right in order to grow that good. They also were pretty creative guys. They didn't think their art was good enough to hang in any galleries, but they thought t-shirts were pretty accessible. So they started putting positive slogans and designs on t-shirts, and they got themselves a used van and went up and down the East Coast and knocked on college dorm doors and went to beach towns and did their best to literally sell their positive saying shirts out of the back of a van. Along the way, they made a lot of friends. One of the friends they made was this handsome dude to the left, Steve Gross. So Steve Gross is a social worker who happened to go to school with John Jacobs. He was John Jacobs' roommate at UMass. And what Steve was doing while Bert and John were going up the East Coast selling t-shirts and trying to make an optimistic business, Steve had started a 1-hour play group for homeless children in and around Boston. And his idea was that if you could create an optimal environment, even for kids who had suffered some of the worst and most unfair things, it would allow kids to access 4 essential ingredients that are essential for any human to be their best. And those were things like internal control. You could design games that would give kids authority of their own body and their own physical space in the room again. You could do things that would get them actively engaged. So physically get up and move and kind of like feel that breath through their body. You could design those games and activities that would foster real, true social connection that would get them to feel safe and seen, both with the other kids in the room and with the adults who are facilitating the playgroups. And that through those 3, what you would ultimately end up with is joy. And when you're accessing joy and you're in an actual state of play, your body, both physically, emotionally, and healthfully, relaxes, and you can access your best thinking, you can have your best experiences, and you can be rooted in your best self. It actually makes it possible to see the good in yourself, others, and the world in these really small and meaningful ways. While Steve was running these play groups thinking he was just helping kids heal in and around Boston, he caught the attention of both national and international leaders in the realm of psychological trauma response. And Steve started being invited to run these play groups, not just in and around Boston, but for refugee populations as far away as Denmark and Turkey, and to work on a national level with children that were being detained for different reasons. While all of this was kind of happening in tandem, Bert and John had another great epiphany. We're really great at making friends, and if we're going to go and sell an optimistic product and tell people that what we're really committed to is changing the national conversation and spreading the power of optimism through reminders and things you can wear and share, there should be a portion of what we do that goes back to truly making life good for those who need it the most, which were kids that had suffered trauma. So they called their friend Steve and said, now at this time, this is before Life is Good had, hit that $100 million mark. So they were more in that, $78 mark. They called their friend Steve and they said, we don't really have a ton of money. How else can we support you in what you're doing for kids that have gone through some really bad stuff? And Steve would say things like, well, I'm going to host a softball game as a fundraiser for my play groups. Would you guys donate the uniforms? And Bert and John said, absolutely, right away. So even before Life is Good had kind of crossed that threshold of being a company that could financially give back, what Bert and John were really focused and keen on is that they could use their talent and their resources and their time to connect and foster an even greater relationship with someone that was moving the needle in the world and solving a big social problem. What we have here is a quote from Steve that he often repeats, which is, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of your relationships. Really at the heart of everything is relationships. So Bert and John, thinking that they were only good at making friends, actually turns out to be one of their greatest assets, because the ability to connect and foster relationships are most often the things that will not only garner the most success and fulfillment, but actually bring you the most happiness and joy and can heal some of the most hurtful things in life. Just to backtrack to get really clear on what the nonprofit side of Life is Good, what the Life is Good Kids Foundation does, is we now support more than 12,000 child care professionals. So those are people like teachers, child life specialists, social workers, nurses, therapists, camp leaders, school administrators, and offer them transformative trainings, workshops, and retreats through our signature Playmaker program, which really focuses on treating the systemic issue of early childhood trauma by ensuring the fact that when these children engage with other adult caregivers, which they always will, be it at school, in a hospital, or through a social service agency, or through an enrichment program, that those adults that they engage with will be the most responsive. And by a responsive adult, it means that they are able to create those optimal spaces and places for kids to feel safe, loved, and joyful again, to connect, engage, explore, and grow. Today, like I said, we offer that Playmaker program to over 12,000 child care professionals all across the US and Haiti, and it results in an improved quality of care for more than 1 million kids who are suffering and growing up amidst the traumas impacted by poverty, violence, and illness. Oops, I didn't mean to hit escape. See what happens when it's live? You just never know. Hold on 1 second. All right, there we go. So if we look at the Life is Good Kids Foundation by the numbers, again, our mission is spreading the power of optimism to kids who need it most. We impact the care delivered to more than 1 million kids who are overcoming trauma. We work with over 12,000 child care professionals. We have over 52,000 supporters of our foundation. Those people run from, individuals to big corporations. We have 200 Life is Good company employees. Every employee at Life is Good contributes to the Kids Foundation in some way, really speaking to the mission that Bert and John first set out with their company, whether it's through time, talent, or they have a monetary contribution deducted from their paycheck. And really what all of these numbers add up to is to put one more authentic relationship out in the world, to make sure that one kid who has suffered some of life's most unfair stuff has the chance to connect with a playmaker, with a responsive adult caregiver at school, at a hospital, in a social work agency. Because what the science tells us through this study called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, which you can look up, is that while trauma is hard and difficult and complicated to treat, what we know for sure now, what the science tells us, is that an authentic, responsive relationship with an adult caregiver has the potential of intervening and changing the trajectory of that entire child's life. We think that changing the trajectory of a child's life who suffered trauma is of the most optimistic things that we can do. So we continue to do it for more than 25 years now. So when we think about how do you continue to fund this mission, what I want to talk about here is how relationships and friendships can help you identify who and how you should partner with and how you can fulfill your better business by becoming more connected to solving a social problem, treating an issue, or just connecting with good people who are already around you that make the best sense for you. As I mentioned, 10% of Life is Good annual net profits feed the Life is Good Kids Foundation, which makes Life is Good our most loyal and one of our most generous donors, but it actually only covers a quarter of our operating budget. The rest of that $3.2 million that's necessary to partnering with all of these child care organizations and staff members and helping all of these kids overcome trauma, that comes from a variety of other sources. One of the biggest sources are individuals, so optimists who care. These are caring, generous, like-minded people who use their personal resources to support a cause. In our instance, you'll see this is clearly a picture of Garth Brooks. I don't know if anybody knows him. But when you are out in the world and sharing your mission, one thing to pay attention to, that you should pay attention to, is who's paying attention to you. Look at your email list, look at your customer care list, look to see who's calling in and asking questions and who those people might be connected to. On any given month, we have about 8,000 people that drop anywhere from $1 to $100 into our donation bucket, which lives on the Life is Good e-com store. One of the people who dropped a donation into that bucket happened to be Garth Brooks and his wife, Trisha Yearwood. Garth then called our customer care organization, originally thinking that he would do Life is Good t-shirts for an upcoming tour. The t-shirt deal actually ended up not working out. But what was interesting is through that conversation, Garth learned that the Life is Good Kids Foundation invests in child care workers and making sure that they create optimal environments. Turns out that Garth Brooks has his own nonprofit called Teammates for Kids, and what Garth's nonprofit does is that they build these equivalent of these multi-million-dollar playgrounds in hospitals all over the country, so that when children are being seen at these hospitals, whether they're living there or they're an outpatient, there is a safe, completely accessible place for them to go and simply be a kid. But what Garth had learned through this project is that you can have a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, but if you don't have a standing and multi-million dollar individuals running and facilitating the games and energy around that equipment, you just have a fancy playground and you don't really have a connective environment. Once he got up close to the Playmakers program and learned more about the Kids Foundation, we actually ended up setting up a partnership where Teammates for Kids made it possible so that every child life specialist in these playground areas that they built in the hospitals, which are called child life zones, every zone they built everyone who worked there became a trained playmaker and went through our workshops and retreats. So I tell you that as a way to like really identify like who are the people on your lists, who are already reaching out to you, and what are they connected to, and how can you have more conversations with them to see where there might be parallels in what they're doing and what you're doing. Another bucket of giving that we found that is really beneficial to both sides of the relationship are other businesses who are committed to doing business for good. So people that have really strong corporate social responsibility, CSR, and give back strategies. Again, these are caring and generous business leaders who give their time, talent, and resources to support the cause. This picture here is a chef, Todd Weiner, who's really well known here in Boston. He's the chef owner of a restaurant that's right in our neighborhood called Pastoral, which is one of the most underrated and completely delicious restaurants in town. He's connected with all of the celebrity chefs in and around Boston. And the way that a relationship had started with him actually is that he was the one that noticed, man, people keep coming into my restaurant wearing these Life is Good t-shirts. Like, what is that all about? Turns out that Todd makes really good food. Employees of Life is Good, and Life is Good is around the corner from his restaurant, enjoy really good food. He saw us going there for lunch often. He ended up reaching out to our founders, learning more about our nonprofit side. And I'll like flash forward, you know, we've been in this location for 4 years now. Todd is our sole caterer for every event that we do in-house. To have one of the best chefs in Boston be donating incredible spreads for anywhere between 4 to 6 events a year has made our events something that easily sell out, that people always want to come back to. Not only are they inspired and engaged by our content, but they know that they're going to be treated to really elevated food and experience thanks to Todd and his team at Pastoral. The equivalent of what Todd donates to us is in the tens of thousands throughout the course of the year. And it's a really good way, one, for him to receive a tax benefit from us. And then also it's a great way to be known in the neighborhood. And, you know, while a lot of chefs completely just connect with a mission that has to do with food and sustainability, which is totally admirable and understandable, what's nice about this example is that it really is, it really does put everyone's antennas up for, think of where your actual neighborhood is, what your location is, and who's doing stuff the best of the best in it, and how can you further kind of elevate the game on both sides. You know, Todd is very generous to us, and like I said, does all of our events and does the equivalent of you know, tens of thousands of dollars in product donation and services to us. In return, we've done big co-PR pieces whenever we're asked, you know, what's hot in our neighborhood or where do we like to go. We always mention Pastoral. He's been kind of our chef, our featured humanitarian chef at different galas. So there's a way in which like both sides can benefit from that relationship. Another unique way that we've seen how you can do better business and how you can raise more funds and kind of solve more problems together is looking for different licensing and product relationships, so purchase with a purpose. This example here is, if you can see this beautiful woman in the green glasses, she's wearing 4 Alex and Ani bangles. Alex and Ani is one in about 24 licensing partnerships that the Life is Good Kids Foundation, the nonprofit side, has with other different for-profit organizations where a portion of the proceeds of their products actually benefits our services and workshops. So in the instance of Alex and Ani, we've had a partnership with them now for the last 3.5 years. Their bangles have raised us, you know, over $250,000 to support our cause. We have other partnerships with people like Designer's Choice is a really good example. So you may have never heard of the company Designer's Choice, but if you have ever seen or purchased flowers at a Trader Joe's, a Whole Foods, a Kruger's, an Acme, a Stop and Shop, a Shaw's, basically any and all major, a Big Y, a Publix, any major grocery store, within the U.S. A large majority of those flowers comes from a wholesale floral distributor that's based here in Chelsea, Massachusetts, called Designer's Choice. They had attended one of our events. They heard about our good food. They heard about our good people. And they came to us and said, could we create a similar fashion of what you guys do on a larger scale at Life is Good? We'd like to create a custom Life is Good floral bouquet that we can sell both through Amazon Prime and in grocery stores across the country, and have 10% of those sales benefit your work on behalf of kids that have suffered trauma. We, of course, said yes, and that partnership garners a six-figure contribution every year for the last multiple years. So basically what I'm getting at is, like, how do you become the best PB&J sandwich? How do you get to the point of where you're spreading the love of what you do as a business through really good partnerships and good work of other nonprofits? So when you're looking to spread the love and really find your friends, I would totally encourage you to focus on these 4 buckets. First, look at the network that you already have that exists. Go deep into your client, customers, fans, and followers and subscriber lists. Really understand, how are you connecting with them, and how do they know what you're up to? Whether that's through your newsletter, or whether that's through gatherings in your shops, or whether that's through different events. Really get a hold of who are the people that continue to return, and what are those people doing either unique or bestly in the world, and how could you both benefit from getting to know each other more. Go really deep into your neighborhood. Who's right around the corner from you? How are you connecting and learning about what's important to them, and what they're serving, and how what you're doing might be able to further their mission, or how you might be able to help one another out, whether it's driving things in store, or whether it's doing a combined newsletter, or whether you figure out that you've got services that you can almost swap. Figure out who's right around you, and how you can truly partner and help everyone on all sides. And then I'd also challenge you to go really deep into your mission. Whatever you're selling, it's probably not what you're most passionate about. I mean, Bert and John are really great with reminding us of this through Life is Good. Nobody at Life is Good really cares about a t-shirt. What they do really care about is what the t-shirt represents. They care about the idea of fostering connection. They care about the idea of finding opportunity over obstacles. They care about the idea of having optimism be the driver over adversity, especially when it's the most adverse, right? Everyone here is connected to, how do you find light when it's dark? Not avoiding that it's dark, but finding the little pinhole of light that you can grow from. So I would invite you to, whatever you are selling, or your product, or your store, or your goal is about, what is the mission that's behind that? And then how can you align with others who see and operate in the world the same way? I think that there's a really easy line that can be drawn. So if you are, a pet store, then it makes sense that through your corporate social responsibility strategy, you're going to support the ASPCA, which the ASPCA is a wonderful organization. But maybe you want to take a little time and go a little bit deeper and say, okay, what level is that I want to support? Is writing a check enough for me? My guess is probably not. Do you want to think more closely about, do you want to go directly to the national chapter? Is there a regional or local one that you could have more direct access to and build more unique programming with? Probably. And also, does it have to be so directly related? Does it have to be, is it that what is at the heart of your mission is the love of animals, and so there's no organization that loves animals more than ASPCA. Again, I'm just using an example. I'm sure you're much more familiar about what might be in your area. But is it that it's really about the love and connection with other living things? Does that go beyond 4 legs, or does that just stay with 4 legs? And these are the questions that I think the more clearly you can ask yourself, and the more defined you can get is what is at the core of your mission. You know, for us, it's spreading the power of optimism. So while, you know, flowers are not a product that Life is Good distributes, when a florist approached us and said, we would like to have a portion of these flowers benefit what the Kids Foundation is doing, we said, yeah, that makes so much sense. You know why? Because like flowers are what you give when you want to brighten or find brightness even in the darkest of times. Flowers make sense. Another example I'll give you that didn't make sense is we had an online gaming organization make a very attractive offer to give us a very sizable donation to create a custom online sports betting game that would benefit the Life is Good Kids Foundation. And while we were certainly grateful to be asked, and while it's hard to turn down a donation, especially a sizable one, for us, online sports betting and, you know, overcoming trauma, those missions didn't align. So that was something we said no to. So again, getting really clear at what's at the heart of your mission, not just what you do, not just what you sell, but why you exist in the world, your unique position. And then who else is so closely aligned with that, it almost seems obvious, of course, you want to support them in the nonprofit space. And then, of course, look at your assets. You know, what are your unique assets? How can they be of service to those that you want to partner with? Again, as someone who has built a fairly good career in the world of nonprofits here in Boston and across New England, of course, nonprofits are always very grateful when people come and say, I'd like to make an investment in your organization. We say thank you, and that's great. And resources and a check is not the only ways to give. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's an organization that was started by Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, called Pledge 1%. What Pledge 1% is all about is for entrepreneurs and new business from the very first time that they start, they open their doors or they launch online, they sign up, if they take the Pledge 1% pledge, is that they dedicate from the time they open to however big they get to pledge 1% of their resources, so their money, their time, their talents, or their people. I would really encourage all of you to look to see if there's a Pledge 1% chapter in and around where you live, and also do the math of like, what kind of pledging 1% could you might do, and who then through that pledge might that put you in touch with on the nonprofit side. Again, the Pledge 1%, it's not like this have to, that you have to give 1% of your profits or you have to give, but it's a more holistic view of like, what you have as a business to give and further social causes that you could be connected to is not just your resources, but the talents of the people that you employ. You know, your head of marketing donating 1% of her time over the course of a year to a nonprofit that you're connected to help them spread their message better or to put out better collateral is probably a far greater resource than if you show up and help them pack boxes for something. So really look at your assets, look at your people, look at what you offer, and look to see how that might be of value to other nonprofit partners in and around your area. I just did so much talking. And so I want to make sure to go back now and see if there are questions or if you've got anything else that you'd like for me to answer. There I am. Oh, I was there. Okay, I'm back. I don't think that I'm sharing my screen anymore, but I can see someone else's. Is anybody there? Is it just me now?
Hi, Amanda, this is Melissa. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I can't hear anybody. Melissa, are you there?
I am. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. I will send a chat.
Oh, so I can see. Hi, everybody. Oh, this is Melissa. I can hear. Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, great.
So I'm happy to take any questions from anyone. If anyone's got any questions, I'm always happy to answer questions after. I know that this can be a lot of information to process. What I'm going to provide to Melissa is I'll provide all the slides. I'll also provide a mission overview of the Kids Foundation of what we do and why we do it, and a copy of our latest newsletter.
That is awesome, Amanda. Thank you so much. Does anybody have, I know we're a bit over time, but does anybody have any questions or further thoughts that they'd like to contribute, or, you know, just kind of general feelings or impressions?
Oh, Melissa, I can. It helps when you turn the volume on your computer. Because
Okay.
now I can.
Great. Well, if nobody has any questions, like I said, I know we're a bit over time, and I want to be respectful of that. But we're going to be sending out all of this information from Amanda, which is amazing. We're also going to be sending some additional kind of resources about that. Also, I hope that everyone can join us in April when we have our next webinar launching our Green Paw 2.0 program. But thank you so much for joining us. Amanda, thank you for this amazing content. This is just so inspiring. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Amanda if you have any further questions or thoughts, and we'll be getting all of this information over to you today. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you again, Amanda, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
You so much. I forgot, if anyone wants, my email is agoodwin@lifeisgood.com.
Great. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.